my, right, here we go. Oh, here's our here.
See, can you see my second one?
It's connecting. So, there you are.
So I'm just trying to get the thing to flip properly. There we go.
Ayesha's here.
Just transferring my male figure. I forgot to earlier.
Oh, let me move this big light out of the way. I feel like it's quite dark in my room.
Pardon me?
I feel like my room is really is a bit dark. Does it look okay?
No, it's pretty bright.
Is it? Okay. Let me see if I can. It's because the sun's going down here, I think, or soonish. Let me see if I can get the shutters open a bit wider.
Come over here, you. Come over here.
How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Exciting to be back again for this.
Oh, I can't hear you, Charlotte.
Oh, right. I'm just going to fiddle because I've literally just come off a
Oh no, you're quiet. I can hear you, but just quietly.
And I had no problems at all. I'm just, while you two settle in, I'm just going to fiddle around with my audios and see if I can. It's a Zoom thing. Is that any better?
It's the same.
The same.
Any better?
Yes.
Yes.
Much better.
Much
better.
Okay, good. Not the end of the world if you can't hear me, but not a great start. Good.
So Laurelie is, just to check, Laurelie is doing the housekeeping slides, right? But I'm going to talk through them.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've got them downloaded already. And it's funny, I was like ready an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. I was like, okay, I'm gonna relax. And then about, I don't know, half an hour ago, I realized I hadn't transferred.
Brilliant.
And why aren't you full screen? Oh, it's good enough, I think, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's all right. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. So should I start letting them in?
Sure.
Okay. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Just letting you in. Some familiar names joining us. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining.
I'm just gonna check the chat. Hi, everyone. Are we recording? I'm just asking.
Yes, we are.
Hi, Nasiba.
We're very excited too. And thank you for your encouragement to add more classes.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have students from
Oh, where did I put that thing I want to share to?
Dubai.
Really? Oh, there we go.
Here it is.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Very, very welcome. Okay.
And as you can tell, I'm in a different orientation in the studio. I have spring cleaned and rearranged to make sure that things are more functional. I was getting crazy in here. So not crazy in a good way either.
Your studio looks like an Aladdin's cave, Laurelie.
It really is
Like a what?
I'm having studio envy. You seem to have all of these lovely little corners and little spaces to work. Mine's just spare bedroom.
Well, I'm only showing you the good bits. You don't see the stuff shoved in the corners, you know?
Yeah, I love looking at people's studios.
Yeah, like there's like a subgenre on YouTube about studio tours.
Oh,
And
really?
when I'm working, I put this stuff on in the background, and then I find myself watching and not getting
video
done.
envy.
You have such beautiful plants as well, Laurelie.
Yes, over here. And
there's another
go.
member of our team making a guest appearance this evening.
He's
I thought he might be.
He's asleep. Yes. They say, you know, let sleeping dogs lie. Let sleeping cats lie. Seriously. Okay. And I think maybe one more minute and we can start, I guess.
Yeah, you just go through.
Wow, we have people from everywhere, from Canada, Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, India. Our poor friends most likely in Austria and New Zealand are asleep. But wow, from Jordan. I remember, Amelia, I think we had an email correspondence. You have a very specific name from Utrecht. And Susan. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I'm recognizing lots of these names too. It's so lovely that you're coming back to join us.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone.
Yeah.
Someone says you have really opened up my world. Thank you, Leighton House. How sweet.
That's lovely. You know, you've sort of opened up ours as well, because having everybody joining us from so many different places around the globe is it's really lovely, including Dorset. There we go. So just, I think we can start as everybody starts joining. So for those of you joining us for the first time this evening as well, you're very, very welcome. I love Dorset, don't feel unexotic. So on behalf of Leighton House, I just wanted to welcome everybody this evening. We're so grateful and thrilled for the lovely comments and all the encouragement to keep these classes running. And just a huge thank you to Ayesha and Laurelie, our dream team, who have agreed to run first a program of 4 classes tutored by Laurelie and moderated by Ayesha, and then we will have a little break. I think somebody said earlier on, like a little half-term break, and then we will swap, and Ayesha will tutor, moderated by Laurelie, which we're just very excited about. So thank you, everybody, and handing over to you, Ayesha.
Hello everyone, welcome to our classes this evening, and welcome back to people who are returning. It's really, really lovely to have you. My name is Ayesha and I will be moderating this evening. I'm an artist, an illustrator, and an art educator. I graduated from the Princess Foundation School for Traditional Arts, where I specialised in illuminated manuscripts and miniature painting. And since then, I've travelled to and from Istanbul and many places in the Islamic world to research the craft and to teach. I currently teach at the Princess School as well and work as an artist, an art educator and children's book illustrator. I have the great pleasure of introducing Laurelie Rae today, who is our tutor, supremely talented. Laurelie is based in Istanbul, where she has been since 2014. She, like me, has a master's degree from the Princess School, and also a master's in visual art and communication from Istanbul. Her special interests are ceramics, drawing and illustration. And she is the author of Islamic Art and Architecture, Memories of Seljuk and Ottoman Masterpieces, which is a wonderful book. I have seen it myself, which she authored and illustrated. She's currently working on her second publication, which is Surface Patterns, Motifs from Islamic Lands. So we can maybe post that in the chat a bit later. And she also teaches online. So her current workshops are online with scripts and scribes, which again, I'll post in the chat a bit later if anybody is interested in taking a look at those. And before we start the actual workshops, we're just going to quickly go through a little bit of housekeeping to make sure that our sessions run smoothly today. So we ask everyone to please mute their microphones and turn off cameras for the duration of the session. Feel free to use the chat box to ask any questions or share your thoughts. And I will be here on hand to help you through the workshop. So any questions, direct them to me and I will moderate everything and pass them on to Laurelie. Do we have anything else?
Yeah, okay, I think we're good to go.
Okay, so handing over to Laurelie now, who is going to be leading the session.
Yes, welcome everyone. Thank you, Ayesha and Charlotte and Leighton House for continuing to do these programs with us. It's a lot of fun, so it doesn't really feel like work. It's, you know, getting to go through the treasure box in a museum basically, and having a chance to share the different artworks with everyone is a lot of fun for sure. So this is inspired by Islamic Art 3. We are focusing on this panel that's on your screen right now, which is the Kubachi panel, which is one piece that has 4 figures in it. And we're going to look at some of the historical aspects of it, as well as the stylistic parts. And then we're going to make our own figures today. I really hope you have downloaded and printed out the figures because they are paramount for today's class. If not, the only other suggestion I can make for the moment is when we're learning how to make some of the patterns that are going to go on the figures, that you can create like a swatch for them on the side. And then when you have a chance to print off the figures, you can add them later. So panic not. All right, just a quick, so we had our introduction. So the Google Drive and class materials, I just want to briefly touch on. I make a Google Drive for each of the classes or set of workshops I do. They are curated specifically for each class with handouts, visual materials, the class recording, presentations, etc. So in the spirit of sharing as much as I can with you, please respect the materials I give and just use them for your own study purposes. I realize I can't control what you do with them, but I'm working with the honesty system here. So hopefully that's good enough for you. Now, when you are making your artwork and you would like to share with us, maybe you have social media, maybe you don't, you can send to the account I'm managing, which is damascustiles@gmail.com. And you can also send them to Charlotte. And her email is also on the slide, charlotte.villiers@rbkc.gov.uk. And then, of course, please don't forget to tag us online on social media. And we're going to put the description, not the description, the tags in the chat box for you to remember. They're all written here. But for me to go through all of them, it's just not gonna stick. All right, so let's start. There's a little bit of a history involved here before we can talk specifically about the Kubachi tiles. It begins with something called the Minai technique. I have some notes up here. I tried to condense it, but like anything in art history, it's always got multiple different threads attached to it. So this is a bowl from the Met. It's ruler and attendants. So you can see in the center, you have the ruler, probably his closest viziers, and then you have his attendants around him. So a lot of these ceramic pieces that we have that are Minai technique or Kashan tiles, which is the city where they come from and also a style, they were considered to be basically the apex of that style during that time period, and basically for Islamic ceramics because of the technology they used and the skill. Anything that kind of looks like a yellowy color on the bowl is actually gold. So they had really developed an incredible luster, technique and application. So this style was used up until the Mongol invasion, which would bring in the Mongol Ilkhanids, which is 1219. After that, it kind of led itself to applications in different ways. So this specific enameled technique changed. Minai actually means enameled, as I just said in Persian. So what happens is one single piece gets fired 3 times. First, when it's a bisquare, so when it's wet, gets fired. Then they put a glaze on it, which gives it the blue color, or sometimes turquoise, or sometimes green. And then after that has been fired, then they apply the colored enamel on top. And that's the illustrations that we see in this example, for example. And it's fired at a lower temperature so that it preserves its color. Now, they're generally Haftrang, which means 7 colors. And we have blue, red, yellow, green, black, and I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head. This technique actually inspired the Siyah Kalem technique, which is a type of miniature. I have a slide, I'll show you what that is. Basically, it means, what is kalem in English? Pencil, or pen. So the black outlined version of miniature painting, where it's only the black ink on the page, that's the one I'm talking about. And then something important to note here, miniature style is actually an appropriation by the West. The word miniature, so minai, it's coming from that word. And generally in English or in Roman languages, miniature means something small, something detailed. Whereas miniature actually usually means a style, this style specifically that we're looking at. It doesn't necessarily mean tiny and minuscule. You do have that, but we're gonna see some versions today that are 1 meter by 2 meter, and it's a miniature style, but it's not tiny in size. Okay, so this is the siyah kalem I was talking about here. This is a jinn, a demon, and a dragon. So it's quite beautiful, the different techniques that you get here. This is one of my favorites. Okay, so now we are moving forward. I'm just making sure I got everything that I wanted to say about that. The Manai technique comes from the Kashan region, but we also get the Seljuks and in Baghdad artists using this technique too. So it's a Central Asian Mesopotamian technique that many artists were using during the 12th and 13th century. Was really developed and really honed. Usually the bodies are fritware, which means the composition of the ceramic is very high in quartz or silica. So it's not like the average ceramic that you're using today, which is predominantly clay, which gives it a very smooth and glass-like surface to paint on. And let me see. Okay. So here, this is my transitional piece moving from the Manai technique into the Kubachi technique. As you can see, we've got two very, I don't know if they're confused or, or what, but we have two suns here. And they are, if you can see the difference, we have almost monochrome on the left-hand side from Konya. And then on the right-hand side, which is the Kubachi style, we have multiple colors, which is called polychrome. So we've got yellow, red, blue, green. That looks about it. And then black, obviously, and maybe turquoise, but I think it might be just the green kind of gone awry a bit. So you can see similar themes, similar visual vocabulary, especially his like baby hairs along his face. But we can see the addition of color. So there's lots of different theories why this may have happened. It could be because in Kütahya in Anatolia, it was something that was kind of born there. This polychrome technique. And the difference also that happens is the glazes go from being on the surface to being under the glaze. So we go from on glaze to under glaze. And this makes a difference in the strength of the glaze. And I think it's part of the reason why we don't have that many examples of Kubachi tiles left. Now, moving on. Here's a wonderful plate example here. So Kubachi is in Dagestan, but what's really interesting, and I'm not exactly sure, I didn't find the information as to why this style was called Kubachi, because Kubachi is actually in present day Russia. But it was made in the northwest part of Persia, still not very close to Kubachi, sorry. I'm not sure why it was called that. I didn't find much about it. And it's not a very researched topic, actually, these wonderful polychrome tiles. Again, made during the Safavid period, very similar composition of the ceramic. And then you get two kind of styles, you will get a full figure, what we're going to look at today, and you get this bust. So basically from, you know, mid-navel or mid-navel, mid-section up, basically. And they're always surrounded by flowers or by a landscape or trees or something like that. And also what makes them stylistically interesting is their geographical location being in between the Ottomans, the Uzbeks, the Mughals, and also the Indian Ocean and the Arab or Persian Ocean, depending on which side of the ocean you're on. Okay, so here's our wonderful panel again. We have two youth figures, two male youth and two youth female. Sorry, I'm getting my words messed up here. And they are in 17th century courtly dress. You can see they've got flowers in their turban or on top of their headdress. And they have really beautiful clothing on, and they're surrounded by arches. Actually, just quickly, as I'm doing this presentation, I'm going to tell you quickly how we're going to break down the class. So today is the gentleman figures. Next week is the female figures. The class after that, I believe, is the arches with the clouds. And then the final class is the botanical class, where we're looking at the flowers and the leaves, and perhaps I'll add some small trees in if you want to add something different. So that's how I've broken this panel up. You can choose to do the full panel. You can choose to do one or two figures. It's completely up to you. And now I'm going to show you a picture of the panel in situ. It is very hard to get a good, not close up, that's not what I mean. It's hard to understand exactly where it is because it isn't that big in terms of this beautiful room. This is the Arab Hall at Leighton House, and it sits in this really wonderful wooden, not bookcase, but centerpiece wall surrounded by all of these wonderful damascene tiles. All right, so as I said before, the miniature style doesn't have anything to do with size. This panel here, which is at the Met, and I believe it's called, do I have it on the bottom of the page? Yeah, Garden Gathering. It is 1 meter and 4 centimeters tall by 188 centimeters long. I believe there's also one at the V&A, something similar. I wanted to show this to you, one, because it is this style we're talking about, two, because of the wonderful patterns that are on their clothes. We have clouds on this lady here, clouds and flowers and stars. We have different posies over here, lots of different flowers in the foreground and ceramics. And then also this lady living in the lap of luxury, it looks like over here. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is to try to come up with a theme for your figures as well. So we can see here, this is, you know, a garden gathering. If that's something you want to do, think about it. We'll talk about more styles in a minute. And then also, I wanted to show, there's something on the bottom of this screen. This is weird. I'm not sure where that came from. So this is a similar kind of garden gathering. It's called the Lover's Garden. But I wanted you to see that the figures are all in a very similar position. They're all kind of leaning, as in the previous panel and in our figures too. You know, they're all kind of leaning to one direction. So we've got a crossover between the ceramics, the Kubachi tiles, this Safavid tile, and then into our miniatures here. And then below we have this wonderful tile fragment, which is at the Louvre. I just can't get over his turban and his little curls. It's one of my favorites.
Laurelie, there is a
Yeah.
question. I'm wondering, can I ask it now, or would you prefer to wait until the end for
Go
questions?
ahead. Go ahead.
So somebody has asked whether the tiles are painted first and then put in the kiln, or like what's the process, I guess, you know, and
Okay. So with the later style, when we go to underglaze, if we have a tile, we have to bisque fire the tile, which means the tile has dried out. We have to put it in the oven and fire it so that it's not porous anymore. At that time, we can put a whitewash on it so the background is white and it seals everything. Then we draw on top of it and we put a glaze on top of that, which basically turns to glass, and it encapsulates everything and makes it so nothing can come into it. So it's fired when it's underglaze technique 2 times. When it is the on-glaze technique, it's fired 3 times. The first 2 times are the same, where we put it in the kiln when it's a bisqueware, when we put a glaze on top of it, which will change the color. In this case, it can be blue, green, or turquoise. And then they paint on top of it and it's fired again. If you don't paint on top of, if you don't fire the ceramics, the glaze will never stick. It's not like a normal paint, like an acrylic paint or an oil paint. It turns to dust after the water has evaporated. So it'll just kind of rub off. I hope that answers the question. Is there any other questions?
Not at the moment. Just I want that hat from looking at the figures in the garden, which
Yeah,
so very funny. But no more questions at the moment, I think. But a lot of enthusiasm for the trees that you'll be doing.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so just quickly before we move on to the next part, as I said, I would like you guys, if you want, of course, to come up with a theme. So it could be the seasons, it could be fruit trees, it could be the elements, cardinal directions like north, south, east, west, different weather. Any other ideas, Ayesha?
Did you say the elements already?
I said the elements, yeah.
So cardinal direction, colors maybe, different color palettes.
Yeah, you could do different, like, do you mean like warm color, cool colors, like that?
Thing like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe even they could, if they wanted to, for example, look at different examples of Islamic art and take like a sort of a turquoise palette, take a more neutral palette from, from another part of the Islamic world, maybe take a kind of jewel-inspired palette from Mughal India, something like that could be quite nice. It could be quite subtle, so it doesn't need to be a very obvious link between things, but just something that ties everything together. There are a couple more questions here, Laurelie, if you're okay to answer.
I'm going to answer them while I'm going to show some more examples here.
Sure. So would you like to get started first and then I'll put them to you?
No, you can ask them to me now.
Right, okay. So we have, so the same person, Sarah, who asked about the whether the tiles are fired before or after painting, is asking about how accurate the colors are in large tiles. So I'm guessing that means how accurate they are from before firing to after firing.
Oh, but the colors completely change because there's a chemical reaction that happens. So, for example, when I'm painting green, when I apply, the color comes out as kind of a reddy color. And then when it has the chemical reaction with heat and the glaze on top of it, it turns to a green color.
Right, okay, so the color of the glaze is painted doesn't correspond to what it turns out.
And then when I've done Damascus tiles specifically, the cobalt blue color, and I can show this after the break, the cobalt blue color goes on like a very kind of pastel purple color, and then the manganese purple goes on a similar color, but when they fire, one is like eggplant purple, and one of them is, you know, a very rich blue color. And they don't share any chemical compounds, which is interesting that they have similar colors.
So perhaps to clarify, Sarah's asking, she's saying that they're all painted at once and then fired together. But I think she's wondering, the question is more about, is there any discrepancy between the colors once they've been fired?
No, well, there's different techniques. That's the problem with answering your question. When we're talking specifically about underglaze, they all go in at the same time. When we're talking about cuerda seca, different colors go in the kiln at different times at different temperatures. So it's a little hard to answer the question like
Specifically.
Directly.
Yeah, depends on what they're doing.
Let me see here. So before COVID, that's how we measure time now, right? So before COVID, I had walked into this really lovely antique bookshop, and I came across a whole bunch of, well, it's a collection of Ottoman Empire miniatures. So it comes in, you know, a whole folio of different ones. And so this section, it has the Levni, which is a reclining figure by Levni, the artist that he coined. And he was inspired by actual Western models, which we'll get into next class. But I wanted to look at the clothing. I'm trying to like not have the light completely disturb this, but they're glossy. So wonderful striped pants with like an organza on top. It's incredible. We have this very sleepy chap here, and his little turban and hat are off. And in the pillow, this is gonna bother me. In the pillow, it's one of the patterns that I included, which we're gonna look at in a minute. We have this interesting gentleman with some coffee and a really nice pink kaftan he's wearing. And then we have this courtly, probably Hatun. You can see her dress through her pocket here and underneath, and the furs coming out from the bottom. So the reason why I'm showing these is because they really, really put a lot of time and effort into the different clothing that were portrayed. Like this lady here, she's got her stripes, she's got another fabric here, the green fabric and the yellow, and then the patterns on her hat. So we're basically going to go crazy with patterns today. These are from of course they didn't put, Levni was, I think, 17th century. And this artist specifically.
The spelling for the artist?
Tell me again.
Do you have the spelling of the artist's name?
Levni. As I said, next week we're going to look at this a little bit more in depth, so don't worry. And then one last one, kind of unrelated, but I thought this was like so cool. We've got this one that's demonstrating fireworks with Sultan Suleiman. So you've got the different fireworks happening. They're lighting the fireworks. You know, there were pyromaniacs even in the Ottoman Empire. And this one apparently is how to mend a broken arm. I don't know if I'd trust this doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if there's alternative health insurance at that time, but I would not be going there. So now is the time to get your paints, pencils, and your handouts, your worksheets out, please and thank you.
So while people are just getting their equipment together, somebody has asked whether the worksheets are hand-drawn.
Of course they are, yeah.
I thought so. So yes,
Yeah.
that answers that question. And also about what is the sort of traditional technique of transferring the design onto the ceramic?
I think we need to do a ceramic class, Charlotte.
Yeah, I think people are fascinated with the
Good
process.
idea. We'll do it.
So to transfer, we take something very similar to a tracing paper, and we push little holes. 1 second. I don't want to disturb the pasha over here. I'll show you. I'll show you the artwork that came from this too, because that'll give it context. Okay. So, I'm sorry. All right. So to give you an idea, can you see the tiny holes?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we do is we put tiny little holes in it, and then the bumpy side is up, and we take graphite or charcoal and we rub it over the surface and it transfers. So this, let's see. This middle part here is this part. This was a test tile for a project I worked on. Now this isn't actual like a traditional Ottoman pattern. This is from the Alhambra, but I use the same techniques. So you get very good precision. Okay. Say hello to Henry.
Hi, Henry.
All right. So here is the palette that I gave you guys. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a collection and show what was possible, and then try to apply them ourselves. Now, one thing I'm going to say is that in this class, I'm not showing how to transfer the patterns to the paper because we did a class like that with Ayesha. You have the handouts themselves, which I think suffices. If you would like to learn how to do the transfer, in Ayesha's classes, do you remember which ones you show the transfer? Is it in all of them?
I think in all of them. So transferring things from tracing paper to watercolor.
Yeah. So that's it's time consuming. And I thought that we could have fun with patterns today and tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. So I'm just getting my figures ready.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
I didn't hear that. Sorry. Okay, so here you can see the male and the female together. And then our arches that we're going to learn on the 3rd week. Yeah. So I hope you're thinking of the theme that you're going to work on. I'm going to show you one of the figures that I started doing, which was actually a female figure. And then I'm going to show you how I'm going to develop my theme, and we're going to do these together, and I'm going to show you how to add the patterns also. Okay, so here are my gentlemen. Here is my lady. So I thought to do, oops, I'm so sorry. I thought to do weather. That's what I want to do. So I started here thinking of clouds and different things that come down from the sky. And so this one is like snow for me. And you can see on her dress that it's like snowfall. Let me see the, and so I'm going to work on that. Now, I'm going to ask for your help. What do you think we should do with the gentleman? What kind of weather? And then we can work with the palette after. Any ideas? Fall. No, not weather. Not seasons.
We've got heat, blue for night, oranges, reds and browns, sunny, cloudy.
Okay. Okay, I think we're getting lots of sunny and warm colors. So
Yeah.
we can do that. Just making sure my figure is nice and clean. If he sits there, it's good. If he doesn't. So cardinal directions. You can apply cardinal directions by associating different colors with a direction. I have a book here. Give me one quick second. I'll get it because I can't remember either. Okay. This is Sufi by Laurelie Rae, and she has a diagram in here where it demonstrates the colors. I can never find it too when I want to find it. And the directions are also associated with does anyone have this book and know where it is?
I've seen that book. I don't have a copy myself though.
Sorry, not you. My bad habit to shush him. Yeah, oh, here we go. Here we go. So south, north, west, and east. And then so they've divided it like this. So the basic kind of primary colors plus green. That could be one way. And there's also this one where there is the connections with the colors of with the days of the week and the color. And this also is how we get haftrang as well, from hafta if you speak Turkish, or haft means 7. This is Sufi, expressions of the mystic quest, and it's Laurelie Rae. It's got lots of interesting stuff in here. As you can tell, it's very loved. It's falling apart. I didn't get that last question.
So could the figures hold different objects to suggest a theme?
It can, yeah, sure, of course. So if you wanted to draw something else in there, go right ahead. How do you carry out the theme? You just decide what that theme is for you. So if that's based on colors, if that's based on something else, then I'm just gonna change the light and see. Ah, there we go. I think that's better, yeah? Looks better. Okay, so the first things that we need to do are, thanks Ayesha for sharing that. The first things that we need to do is apply a wash of color. So as I'm doing warm colors for heat, I'm gonna pick probably a nice yellow color. And yeah, I'm gonna use these frames here. So I have recently kind of fallen in love for this brand called Roman Smalls, SZMAL. They are handmade paints, and the price I find are reasonable. I got them at Jackson's, so if you are in the UK or somewhere that that Jackson ships to, I would suggest trying a few of their pans out.
Laurelie, somebody's just asking if you could sort of make the image a bit more central in the camera frame. Yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah. I didn't realize it's showing so much of my floor.
Yeah, I think that seems to be fine.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm using a new stand and it's interesting to say the least. So I've got my color. What I'm going to do first here is I'm going to apply a wash of water. So you're not going to be able to really see what I'm doing, but believe that my brush is wet. And what this does is it allows for the color to be applied very evenly. Now, someone is bound to ask about having this piece of watercolor paper stuck to a board, like stretched to a board. Because this is small and I'm not wetting the whole entire space, I didn't opt to do that.
Laurelie, somebody's asking what size brush you're using.
This is a 4.
Thank you.
Just all the areas where I foresee yellow going. In here too. Now these figures aren't exactly the same as the ones in the panel. They're very close. There are some details that were really difficult for me to make out, so I wanted to make them usable. So I used a few different resources to make sure that they look like something. Because I think one of the panels is actually quite a bit damaged. There we go. So what I'm doing now is I'm applying the paint in those areas.
It's a beautiful yellow. It's showing up really nicely on the camera.
It is, it is.
We have a question about whether it's how easy it is to learn drawing the figures.
Can you say again?
Somebody's asking, is it easy to learn drawing the figures? So
so that's part of the reason why I gave the support, is because I wanted the class to be about the patterns and having a kind of sense of accomplishment at the end. Yeah. Drawing the figures takes a very, very long time to learn, and a large amount of confidence is needed. So I am on the side taking miniature classes. I don't teach miniature painting because I never plan to, by the way. I know it's kind of funny because I'm using a miniature figure right now, but I need to have something that's for me, right? So it's a very long process. Sorry, I'm gonna get this kamikaze cat out of here before we have a big problem. See you later. Sorry, everyone. Okay, problem solved.
Actually, Laura, I had a question for you regarding miniature painting. As we were going through the slideshow earlier, I'm not sure, maybe I misunderstood you, but did you say that siyah kalam is derived from the ceramic? So it came from the ceramic and not the other way around?
Yes, there are. So specifically siyah kalam, not all of miniature technique.
No.
Previous to the tiles that they find in Baghdad, in Kashan and Seljuk, and the Seljuk ones, we don't have the black line on its own.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I made sure because I was reading a few different things where it says the opposite.
Because I sort of understood that miniature paint, a lot of the early miniature painters were calligraphers and possibly illuminators as well. But I had no idea that it also had some influence from the ceramic, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and when you think about it, like the first kind of like as human beings, the first things we do to kind of not mark our territory, but almost say that we are here. It's a form of drawing, right? Yeah. And that form of drawing, which is something that then morphs into a written language over thousands of years. Yeah. So if you think of the caves of Lascaux, they are very graphic lines of bulls and of different animals. So it's really interesting to see that the picture and the pictogram always seem to come first. Yeah. As a way to describe what's going on.
We have another question about what yellow are you using at the moment?
I'm using cadmium yellow.
Okay, so that's cadmium yellow, everyone. No wonder it's so beautiful.
Right? This one is really, really nice and vibrant. And I've even mixed it with some buff, like some, I've toned it down a bit because it gets pretty crazy, this one. Okay, so we got to get the major areas in so that we can start adding patterns and we have something dry to work on top of. So let me see here. Oh, and today when I was looking up examples, I found this one incredible example from 1625, and it was a youth very similar to this, and his jacket was in bold black and white stripes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like,
interesting. Some of these, some of the clothing or some of the, I'm always surprised at looking at these miniatures. There are just some elements that look so contemporary, you know, it just it sort of just shocks you sometimes. But,
absolutely. So now I'm taking a ochre, yellow ochre, and I'm putting this on his coat. And I think I'm going to add also in some of these other areas, this kind of greeny yellow color. And I think I don't know what kind of heat I'm going for here, but I think that green yellow color would go well. And then what time is it? Okay.
It's 5 to 6.
Okay. So when I get all of the major areas colored in, we're going to take like a 7-ish minute break. There are one of two things you can do. If you have a hair blow dryer, you can use that, or a space heater or something like that if you can lay it on the ground, which is what I'm going to do, just to make sure that the surfaces are dry. It's not showing up as different colors, is it? But they are different.
Oh, I mean, slightly. There is a slight variation, I think, between the coat and the robe underneath, but it's very subtle.
Yeah. maybe, oh, it's okay for now. I think because I've kept it as a wash.
Yeah, probably.
Does anyone have any ideas of what we can do with his turban?
Mhm. I mean, that's quite some turban there.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's quite impressive.
I think that's why his head is a little forward. It's quite large, you know? It's keeping him humble, maybe.
So yeah, any ideas, anyone, on what we could draw in the turban or how we could paint the turban?
And just as we're waiting to see if anyone has any ideas, this is specifically a Safavid figure. So from the time period of the panel. And now I'm not like, I'm not teaching the traditional, the specifically traditional way of doing miniature painting, because we would be here for a very long time, like weeks. But this is mainly to get the color down, get some patterns on, and enjoy and have an appreciation for the panel and the artwork that's at Leighton House.
So there is, we've got some really interesting suggestions for the turban here. A couple of people have said stripes. So somebody says, Ali says zebra style, but with green and blue. Katie is suggesting stripes. She says one color for the horizontal bits and one for the vertical. And then somebody else is suggesting polka dots or flames, since it's warm.
Flames.
you've got several options.
Have his head on fire.
I quite like the stripy idea, actually.
Yeah, like I'm thinking like something.
Yeah, potentially.
Okay, so if I do stripes, should I do like orange and red? I don't know. Or orange and green?
So we have a suggestion for green blue, but that's not very warm, I suppose. You want something sunny.
Yeah.
Somebody, orange red, Katie likes that one. Any other colorways that people want to suggest?
Got an olive green I'm putting on here in his like side sash. Does anyone want to share which theme they chose for themselves?
Let's see.
Put some green trim on his kaftan.
I think they're all busy painting at the moment. No one's sharing their themes right now.
Or maybe they want to keep them a secret.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe they're following you.
Oh, maybe.
So Rebecca is saying that she's using spring for the male and fall for the females.
Very nice.
We have a question here also about, is there any reason, so Zaina asks, is there any reason for the mouth being tiny? So I think, as far as I understand, it's just part of the style of miniature, and often the miniatures would sort of reflect what was considered beautiful in that time. So small mouths may have been a sign of beauty in that period. And I know that also, so it's really interesting because the miniatures don't have the same sort of ideals of beauty that are necessarily in the West. So I've read before that like a long torso and short legs were actually beautiful in that time. So you see these sort of figures with really long torsos, and the legs are not very long.
I'm the opposite.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I think you're right about that too.
Right. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything or if you heard anything different, but that was my understanding of like why the miniatures look like they do. And also, as for the Chinese features, it's because of the Mongol origin. So the Safavids came from Mongol ancestry, and so you know, they had Chinese features.
And then, and just as a population, they did. And then what's interesting is, I think I have some examples from the Shahnameh. They do make some distinctions at some point where you'll get a character that looks Turkish versus Chinese versus Persian, and you'll have them in a group together, and you can see the differences. But they are still very similar also, because they do have similar heritage, just like Ayesha said. Now in this kind of sash, oh, one thing I was going to say is, another thing that's quite interesting is that there are certain things that, like certain accessories, like the turban, for example, that show that the figure is male. But if you look at the actual body shape itself, if we compare it to the female figure, I don't have mine on hand at the moment, the actual body shape itself looks quite similar.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of the turban, or perhaps what they're holding in their hand, that gives away what gender they are. So that's something else that's interesting, in my opinion.
So there's a technical question here.
Sure.
So it says, is there any impression of shadow performed in this style? I think they're asking whether you're going to show shading. I think that's what.
Yeah, that's going to be in the next class. I'm going to be doing some different shading techniques that are predominantly used in illustration and not specific to miniature, because that's a very long process.
Yeah, so this is not really a miniature painting course, but it's just
right, exactly.
a fun way of painting these figures, and look at just enjoying the work related to the tiles. Yeah.
So I added malachite here, and maybe in his lapel I'm going to add. And as you can see, I wasn't patient here, and so it has bled a bit. But don't worry, in the next round, it's going to be fine. Okay. And actually, I'm thinking in my head, as we have this lapel here, that's malachite, I'm going to put the under part here also, almost like a jacket lining. Okay.
So there's a question about metallic colors, watercolors to be used in this style. So I misunderstood the question. I thought for the paintings that we're doing at the moment, which I understand anything goes, you know, they can use, the students can use any colors they want to, but historically it would have been shell gold. So which is it's a paint made from gold leaf, or sometimes silver as well is used. But the silver turns black over time.
Yeah, I don't, have you seen it in Islamic art?
Silver?
Silver? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, have you not seen that before?
Like an old version, or like being used now?
No, old historical manuscripts.
Maybe I didn't know I was looking at it, if it's been tarnished.
Perhaps because it will just look black, but it's often used in the rivers, in the lakes, in the water. It would have been painted silver, not all the time, but often it is. And you can just see it's gone black over time, which actually, I mean, it still looks quite striking. But yeah, it's time.
I did not know that. Okay. So now, just before we go on break, I'm just putting an extra layer on top of my yellow because it was a little patchy. Now, in the yellow ochre coat, I wonder if it's still not showing much of a difference, funny enough. In the yellow ochre coat, there are some kind of natural variations, and I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that on purpose. All right, so take a few minutes break, get yourself some water if you need, stretch your legs, and we'll be back here at 9:12 or 9:13. Yeah.
It's very specific. 9:13, everyone.
Yeah, I'm going to leave mine on the screen, no problem. Okay, I'm going to have some water.
So if anyone has any more questions, then just feel free to post.
Actually, the person who asked me, sorry, I'm cutting you. The person who asked me to leave it on the screen, I need to move it so I can dry it. So give me a quick second. Sorry. Sorry, everyone. Take a mental picture.
Maybe take a screenshot before Laurelie moves the picture.
Go. Yes, you can do that also. This is, so we are doing the plans for your big project. That's basically what we're working on. This is the experimentation phase.
So that means everyone has to come to the next few workshops as well, so you can complete.
It does. It does. It means you got to spend the next month with.
Yes. You're stuck with us.
Yes. I can think of worse people to be stuck with. There was something.
Charlotte, when can, there is a question, when can we sign up?
For the next classes.
Yeah, the next ones.
Okay, so the link to sign up for next week is already live, and that is going out via email tomorrow and up on social media. And then for the last two, I would think early next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So actually, I wonder if I can find the link for the next classes and maybe just put them online.
You can get it directly from my Instagram.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Let me just.
In the link tree, you can. I think you can copy paste it.
Yeah. So I'll find it here and then.
And I think I'm gonna get the ceramic examples to explain.
Okay, I'm just check I've got the right link and then I'll post it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so that is the link for the next week's workshop with Laurelie. So yeah, you can you can register immediately if you like.
I've got this book. Someone was asking about drawing the figures, right?
Yes.
And I mean, of course, a miniature master just makes it look effortless. So like moving from a lined figure to a more detailed, to a painted, it's not 4 steps.
No.
6,000 steps to get there. And yeah,
there is a question from Rebecca who's asking, would the undergarment and overcoat always be similar or the same color? I don't think so.
no. See if we, I was just about to show you this, and these are almost the same, but let me see. If you remember in the ladies, where is it? One lady had green, and then underneath was orange, and then underneath that was white. So all different colors. Look at these wonderful turbans here. Yeah, cuerda seca means wax cord, and I'm going to discuss that in a minute, actually. Not all Kubachi tiles are cuerda seca. Some of them are. Most of the examples I showed today are all underglaze or on glaze. Anything else and I can share in this book? Yeah, some of the miniature gets very like romantic. It's not my style, but some people like it. Like this, my light is just not good for this, but I like the older style more myself.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Laurelie.
I don't know, there's something kind of a little Peter Pan Tinkerbelly about it. I don't know, is that bad to say? Yeah. I mean, the techniques are amazing. Like, look at these like feathers.
Oh, so it's reflecting quite a lot. Are you able to hold it closer to the camera? Yeah.
Yeah, this light doesn't work well on paper that is glossy. Oh, we're back. Everyone should be back. Okay, so we had a comment about cuerda seca. Cuerda seca is a Spanish word or Portuguese word. I can't remember. So what that means, so this is a cuerda seca tile from Iran, from Isfahan. And if you see this black that's in here, this was a black outline that has wax inside of it. And in drawing that wax, it separates the different colors. One, because if the colors touch, they're going to mix and it's potentially not a good mix. Two, you want those sections to be different colors, obviously. And then also, what was the third reason why I was saying that? I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah. So each color has a different temperature that it needs to be fired at. So the tile or whatever you're working on, whatever the highest temperature is, it goes in first. So if it's like 2000 degrees or 1500 degrees, and that's your highest temperature, it goes in first. Then the next color or colors that are the same or lower temperature, they will be painted and they go in next until all of your colors have been added. So one tile, it's potentially going into the kiln up to 7 times. So the actual tile itself is a different composition. It's much stronger. It's usually stoneware, which means it can fire at a much higher temperature than earthenware, which means it's stronger and it's less likely to be porous, or it should be impossible to be porous. So you can see here we got 2 greens. Those are probably 2 different temperatures. The pink, which is probably a lower temperature too. So I don't work in this style, so I'm not exactly sure. Now, then we have the underglaze here. So this is a Turkish tile I've made. Sorry for the horrible reflection. Actually, let me see if I can turn it off for a sec. If it doesn't make a difference in the light, then whatever. It's not horrible, is it?
That's actually not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a Islamic tile that I've made myself in a Damascene color palette. So everything is done. Everything's painted, outlined, everything goes in the kiln at the same time with a glaze that goes over everything, and it kind of encapsulates it. You can see it's a very, very smooth, glossy glaze. But yeah.
There's lots of admiration for your tile, Laurelie.
Oh, thank you very much.
Beautiful.
I hope that clears up, because sometimes seeing it helps you understand than me just giving random instructions. Okay, I think we are ready to start adding some patterns. More environmentally friendly. Well, yes and no, because the way that we fire today, actually, I don't know. This is obviously tangential, but a lot of the kilns nowadays have special kind of ecological settings or are more ecologically minded. But previously, the kilns were actually in the ground and they were manned by people and they were controlled by wood and by fire. So a lot of the stuff now has a lot of chemicals in it that burn out and go into the air versus how much electricity or resources it uses. And then the more natural approach, I'm not sure which was better or worse.
I was actually wondering, Laurelie, how did they get the kilns to that temperature in those days? Because
it's induction. So basically, if you think of like the way that they build the kiln, it reinforces the heat with the materials that they use.
Okay.
The harder part was actually keeping the temperature consistent. Which means the apprentices needed to be up all night making sure. And that's why usually ceramics is a community thing. Even when I was doing it in university, we took turns being on duty basically for changing the kiln temperatures depending on what you're doing, and with cooling and taking the objects out and loading them. Everyone knew how to do each of the jobs, and everyone took you know what I'm trying to say, shared the responsibilities of each of these things. Okay, So let's get back to our young man here. So now
we have a question, by the way. Somebody asked, is it Islamic? I think they're referring, so this is Zaina, I think they're referring to the miniature painting. And I think that she was referring to the sort of contemporary ones that you were showing.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I hope I've understood that question correctly, but just correct me if I haven't.
Okay. So I'm going to leave his turban for last. So now I'm looking at, just going to get this right. Sorry, everyone, I don't want to make you sick, but okay. Okay, so we have a few different ones here. I'm thinking that this kind of paisley pattern could be interesting. Or flowers, these little flowers here. I'm going to try these flowers, I think. I'm going to show you how to do these because they're simple and they are easy to kind of do over a whole area. So we're going to try those first. I'm going to do, what's going to show up on screen? I was going to do white, but that's not going to show up.
I don't think that will show very well. I think you have to probably take something darker than the yellow.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take maybe a kind of reddy orange.
I was wondering, Laurelie, is there any way that you can bring your camera a bit closer, or is it fixed in that position?
I can bring it closer. Let's see.
Yeah, that might be helpful. And if you just, yeah, that's it. Perfect. Is
that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. All right. So I'm using a size 2. I'm not like Ayesha. I don't use mini brushes. I can't handle them. I think my fingers are too chubby for that situation. But I'm gonna use. I really have a love for Kuretake because I like how they can be both gouache and watercolor at the same time. I think this is vermilion. Let me check. Oh, it's cadmium scarlet. That's interesting. All right, so what I do first for this pattern is I place the red dots of the flower, the top one, so I know where it's gonna go. So I just make, and I just kind of keep them diagonal. So it's gonna look like polka dots at first. Or you can come back after this. Don't fuss so much at this point. Just get the points on there.
So Laurelie, you're making the spots, kind of a pattern shape, or they're not completely random, are they?
No, they're not completely random. I know that there's going to be leaves that come off of this.
Yeah.
So I'm making sure that there's enough space.
Yeah, so that might be.
Although that looks pretty cool too.
It does. The polka dots, yeah.
I would wear that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have enough space now?
Yeah, so if you're following Laurelie, you might just want to make sure that you have enough space around your spots to put leaves.
I'm really excited to see what you guys have done.
Well, we'll share everything at the end. I think that would be really nice. Yeah, just have everyone show their work.
And also remember, this is fabric. Fabric kind of ebbs and flows and goes around the body. So if one of your spots isn't in the right space, it's fine. It's fine. Just enjoy this process. Okay, and then up here at the top, I'm just going to kind of randomly put a few in the space like that. Okay.
Oh, there's a question as to what is the figure carrying?
He's carrying a carafe. So it's a ceramic. It carries some kind of liquid. It carries sherbet, or maybe it carries water. No, not urn. Pitcher, in a way.
Yeah, a decanter maybe or something.
Isn't that usually for wine?
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is. We don't know. We have some figures that are, you know.
I can't think of another, or a jug. No, it's not really a jug, is it?
Jug. Well, yeah, it is a type of. My guess is some kind of sherbet, which is like similar to lemonade, like a rose water vessel. Thank you. Ewer. There we go. Thank you, Nasiba. Yeah. An ewer. All right. So very carefully, with your brush, I put a green paint on here. I'm going to start adding some of the stems and leaves. Because some of these are wet, you just got to be careful with where you put your hand. And no one's in a rush here, so just take your time. I'm going to take off these rings for now. All right, so I'm going to show you how I do it. I do one straight line, and then I have 2 leaves. Now you could leave it like that, or you can add another stem.
Very pretty.
You can add another stem and then add another blossom. It's up to you, completely up to you.
What size brush are you using now?
That's a 1. It's a Da Vinci 1 too, so I don't know. I never find that to be what exactly it's supposed to be. Okay, so now we've got this one that's very close to the edge. So we just kind of play make-believe. And we just put not that much effort into that side. Another leaf, and another flower. like so. So I'm using an olivey kind of green color. Yeah, it's actually called olive green. No, I don't normally do that, but for kind of, so just to answer the question, because no one saw it actually. Do you use different brushes for different colors? No, if I use gold, I have a special brush for gold, but that's the only one. Just because I'm teaching this class and I want to have the two different colors available at the same time, I'm using two different brushes. But usually this brush I'm painting with right now, and I have one more, where is he? It's this Winsor & Newton brush that I always use. They're very abused, really. I should probably retire them soon. You know, you just don't want to though, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's hard to let go of of some things. You just become attached to them.
Yeah, the breaking in of a brush.
Sarah is telling us that her gender neutral figure looks pregnant because she painted her belt blue. I just thought I'd share that with you.
Okay. What am I supposed to do with that information?
They are quite androgynous, aren't they? You can't, you know,
Yeah.
like you said before, you can't always tell whether they're male or female unless you know about the headdresses and the clothing and things.
And in the female figure we have next week, she's got like a little bit of her belly button showing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Apparently it was quite common. Yeah. Oh, and maybe I'll talk about this a little bit more next week because I didn't really prepare my notes for it. But depending on different hand movements, what they're doing, the hands are almost never empty. That's another interesting thing. They're carrying something, they're holding something, they're touching something. For the skin of the face. It depends on so what colors are traditional for the skin or the face. Generally, when they are the Persian miniatures, they are a quite light skin tone that you can mix with buff or white, depending on what you have. And you just play around with yellow ochre and a tiny bit of alizarin crimson that gives a little bit of warmth to the skin tone. And you can play with umber, umber, to get a darker, more olivey undertone. So you have to play with that, and we'll look at that probably next week, the skin tones. Okay, so we've done enough of this pattern, I think. I'm going to finish this for next week. And we're going to move on to another pattern. Let me get some of these. Yeah, I like it by itself too. It's quite cute.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
I think the
this area too in here, it needs some shading, which I'll show you a more contemporary approach to shading next week. And then we'll get into some of these here. Do we have a question?
Yeah, would you use the same or a similar pattern or no pattern for the overcoats?
It's completely up to you. I've seen some like massively elaborate, like bunnies hopping with trees growing and flowers blooming on jacket. So, and then the under, you know, the kaftan or whatever's underneath is also complex. So that's completely up to you. I am thinking I am thinking to maybe do the paisley print.
I always end up having a lot of clothing envy when I look at these miniatures.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So I'm going to show you. Actually, I have a picture. Let me show you quickly. I have this fabulous picture of, this is a little bit later style. Oh, these are lovely. Look at these four gentlemen here. They're quite stern, but look at their wonderful, these are also ceramic too.
Wow.
So they've got paisley all over their jackets.
I don't think I've seen a tile like that before.
Brooklyn Museum. So I am going to, you can honestly tell where I spend most of my life, right? In online archives.
Yeah.
Okay, so paisley pattern it is. I think I'm gonna do like a hot pink on top. So with my pencil, I'm gonna show you, I'm not gonna do it too crowded. It's basically like a large teardrop. And I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm not gonna put the details inside yet. Is the pencil showing up?
I was wondering if you could just go a little bit closer, Laurelie. Maybe not for everything, but just for this bit. Yeah, we can see it. Yeah, we can see that. Beautiful.
Okay. So I'll get the pink on because it's gonna show, I think, very easily. If it doesn't, I have a backup plan for, yeah, that one was from the Qajar era. Wow, you're on your game. Well done. The Qajars are actually really interesting with their ceramics too. Okay. So I've got my pink ready. It's actually called bright pink. This one here.
Oh, what brand of, is that watercolor?
I am, yeah, it's watercolor. I am a Holbein watercolor lover. I've been using them for 7, maybe, no. Let me, I'm still stuck in 2018. I've regressed back because of COVID. It must be like 10 or 12 years I've been using them. Okay. So again, being mindful not to muck up what I've already done. I'll move my hand in a second when I'm done.
Oh, there's a good question here, actually. So it's about, is the idea to reproduce each figure in their own arch, one for the man, I guess one for each person. Because Karen is asking, she said she's thinking that she'll transfer the images onto watercolor in advance for next time.
Sure, go right ahead. Yes.
So is that what you've planned then, Laurelie, to
yes, the plan is to bring everything together in the end. So we are we're experimenting at the moment, we're playing, we're enjoying, and then that's why I said to try to come up with a theme so that they can all work together in the end. The arches will begin to bring everything together because you can choose what your background is in the arches, and then you can decide what plants or what flowers or what trees you want to put in them. I hope that answers.
Yeah, I think that gives everyone some idea.
This is a much better angle. Sorry, this prevents me from smudging everything that's wet. Well, touch wood before, you know.
But actually, it's a really good thing to show the students, because sometimes people forget that they can just turn the page to make it more comfortable for them.
Exactly.
So if you feel that you're working at an awkward angle, just rotate the page around so that you're comfortable.
So I'm just checking these Qajar fellows. So they have an interior, and I've drawn this on the pattern palette. And then I had
Also, so for people who want to prepare their work in advance for next week, you might want to try, you could try printing onto the watercolor paper. Done that before. It just depends on your printer. Hopefully it won't get stuck, and also on the thickness of your paper, but you could try that to save
you'd probably be okay with like 180 or 190 GSM. Anything more than that, it might get jammed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I had an incident with 250 grams once.
Yeah.
That printer's not living anymore.
But you don't have to, I don't think, the paper doesn't have to be too thick. You don't need to go for 300 GSM or anything like that. I think 180 should be fine.
Yeah, let me just check.
Or trace and rub on the paper, that's true.
Where did that thing go? Oh.
Yeah, you can also do the very long tracing method that I showed you before, but that's also very precise. So yeah, you have lots of options. I think you can use any size, Zaina. I don't think it has to be A4. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Exactly, yeah. Whatever you want to do. And then just filling in there, so make it actually look more like a fabric pattern.
Pawan, yeah, I think I agree. That's why I like that method. That the tracing kind of gives us some practice for when we start the brushwork. But if you're pushed for time, of course, you just use a printer or just rub on the back of your tracing.
And one thing I was going to say, I realize I'm doing parts of these freehand, and if you want to draw these different things to organize them, go right ahead. Don't feel like you have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it. Whatever is most comfortable, I would say do that.
They're looking really pretty. It's amazing how the pattern just brings everything to life.
Right?
Shading gives another layer of sort of detail and interest to the work as well.
They're not starting to look like eggplants, are they? No.
No.
Having a fear of that for some reason. Okay. What time is it?
You've got 15 minutes.
Okay. So we can perhaps work on the turban. Yes, and I think Becky is in Christchurch, right? In the lady who just said she has to go. Yes, go sleep. If you're the one who's in New Zealand, please. Must be late. And all of these, by the way, all of these classes are going to be up on YouTube, just like the other ones. We'll provide the links with the weekly emails.
Saba's asking, is there a way to lighten the outline if it's too dark on the pattern? I think if you use, you could paint over it with a light color of gouache. I think that's probably what I would do. Laurelie, do you have any suggestions?
I mean, okay, what color is it? That's the better question. What color is it that you're trying to lighten up?
Dark blue.
What you can do is you can lightly go over that area with a clean brush that has some water on it, and you can take a tissue and dab some of it off, but you got to do this slowly. Don't rub it. Just dab it off and it will come off and it will lighten. Okay, so our friend's turban over here. Let's see. Okay, I have a nice orange color. What did I say I was gonna do? I was gonna do orange and what?
I'm not sure if you just decided on a.
Maybe I didn't say. Maybe it was just in my mind.
Are you?
Okay.
Is it going to be stripy, or what sort of a pattern did you think in the end?
Well, I'm gonna do the stripes, but I'm gonna see first.
Sabah thought it was orange and red stripes.
Yeah, I think that's what came out of my mouth. Also, by the way, I got a very lovely birthday present from my husband this year. So I'm going to use some of these pencils he gave me. So I have this kind of red color. Let's see if it's different enough from the orange. So if any of you guys have watercolor pencils, break those out. Let's see. Well, that's a nice.
What make are your pencils?
They're karandash. I got spoiled.
Lucky you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you deserve it.
I have to say that, yes. Especially at the beginning of the COVID, I was model wife, and then it just, the more months went on, the further it went downhill. And then maybe inside of these little areas, I'll put like a line, like maybe a nice black line or a what's the color called? Red. Is it red umber or burnt umber? Not burnt umber, burnt sienna. Yeah, burnt sienna, kind of a terracotta line. So it's not too strong, but it can give a interesting. Someone also said polka dot, right?
Yeah, someone mentioned polka dots.
Actually, I saw this gentleman, must be 2 or 3 years ago now. And I live in an area in Istanbul that's like quite a traditional area, but there's a neighborhood just north of us that it's very traditional, and you have people wearing very traditional clothes that probably, you know, from 100 or 200 years ago, that kind of style. And there, I will never forget, this gentleman was wearing like shalwar kameez, and he also had a jacket on top and a turban. And the color of his pants and his jacket was like raspberry.
Wow.
Beautiful color. And his turban matched. And he had a white shirt on that tucked into his shalwar. And the stripes in his shirt were raspberry.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Raspberry ripple.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe one of these days I will make a figure after that gentleman I saw.
I think you should. I think you should.
I'm gonna
Sarah
see.
says he was probably going to a wedding.
You know what? I think, if I remember correctly, it was during Eid or Bayram.
I see.
So I wonder if it was his Eid clothes or something. He was by himself too. That was the interesting part. It's still too wet. Yeah, I'm not gonna play with that. Okay, so I will keep doing this turban. Now, because this is a process, and we're going to be learning the different skills to complete all of the figures over 2 classes. Do any of you have any questions for the stuff we covered today? I think we've got about 3 more minutes before we're gonna
Share our work. That's
Yeah.
the point. So Sarah, what is it about the skin color that you're stuck with? So normally, if I'm doing asking students to make a flesh color, a very easy way, if it's a pale skin color anyway, I tell them to mix white with a little bit of red to make a pink, and then keep adding a bit of yellow, maybe yellow ochre for sort of Persian miniature type of a skin color. So you could start like that, white with a little bit of red, very small amount of red to make a pale pink, and then just add like a sort of an earthy yellow, like a yellow ochre, or maybe even Naples yellow or something like that. If you want a sort of Persian miniature type skin color.
If you have a buff titanium, that can kind of bring down the pinkiness too. No, there's no deadline. For sharing your work, you can share in progress, you can share it 2 weeks after the fact. I think we're going to try to, we are in the process of putting all of the artwork from my first workshop and Ayesha's workshop together. I know Leighton House is working on a kind of virtual exhibition for the students' work. But I mean, we're going to have a new batch of artwork coming in, so not to worry. But we do love to see it, so please share it.
I think it's just last minute now of working time, I guess, before we sort of share the work and wrap things up.
Let me
if anyone has any final questions or anything they'd like to say, then now's the time.
Let's turn our gentleman around. And let me get the other thing out. Here we go.
Yeah, so thank you, Laurelie. I guess we're finished for this evening. Please do share your work with us. We would love to see it. You can share with any of our social media tags. So I am Ayesha_illuminates, or Lulu Ateliers for Laurelie, or Leighton House Museum, or you can email Charlotte at rbkc.gov.uk. And if anyone would like to make a donation to the Friends of Leighton House, you can, there's a direct link in the chat box. All of our sessions will be on the YouTube channel soon after the class, so keep an eye out for that. And we just like to ask everyone just to please turn on your cameras and share your work before you go. That would be we really love seeing what you did today. So thank you for joining us. Is that everything, Charlotte?
Yeah, I think that's everything. I just hope everybody's enjoyed themselves, and I'm just watching now to see everybody sharing their work, which looks absolutely
it's incredible. Oh, I love the strong colors.
Yeah, wonderful.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Perfect. So thank you, Laurelie and Ayesha, as ever, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Yes, see you all next week.
See you next week. Thank you.
Bye.